Hey everyone, good early evening to every one of you as we are in for a Saturday night edition of the Rochford Files with your host. That's kind of between the coast, coming to you live from the Mile Highland City, baby. It's Andrew Rochford, live on the YouTubes, the Twitch, and Twitter. As y'all know the drill, please like the stream, share it to familiar and unfamiliar places, and in order to help give me a chance to fight against the algorithms that exist on YouTube and Twitch. And other than that, we got a pretty loaded show today. In fact, a couple new things get added to the mix from the point that I made this live. And I think there's a lot to get into, as we got the whole new thing. Ilhan Omar's next to be confronted, and just in the past couple hours, Barack Obama did as well. Then we've got, but that won't be the first thing though. I actually got a curtain jerker story to go to first with Cenk Uygur, and he'll, with the way he's made his turn from this fake left, and now seeing he's actually made more of a step to the right, surprisingly enough. And now we'll get to the point. Oh, hey, WCSM, what's up? It's actually kind of nice here compared to the past. Thursday was a pretty cold day, but good to see you're here. I'm sure the crowd's a bit slow to arrive, but I know that they'll be here in real time. And what else? Yes, also don't forget to support the Rochford Files on other platforms such as Rumble, Odyssey, through that link tree in the description below. So in addition to that, we also got to talk about this Paul Pelosi story a bit, but not in the way that typical corporate media, whether it's liberal or conservative, wants to discuss it as. So throw some different angles in at that story. And then we've also got multiple sports stories to cover. There's finally a little bit of a class analysis that we've from this whole Kanye West debacle to go out with the Donda Academy and Jaylen Brown weighing in on that. Then at the end of then towards late yesterday afternoon, Josh Primo of the San Antonio Spurs had an unusual release, but now we found out further details as to why that happened. So I'll discuss that story too. Gloria Stefan is remaking that song. The algorithm is going to get you tonight. Hi, Kelly. As I know that this isn't too early in the afternoon for you either. So let's get on Cenk Uygur first. So earlier in the week, Cenk Uygur is now further doubling down on that whole right-wing police trope. You know, that progressive policy is the thing that has been responsible for the stuff that Cenk is saying in this tweet. LA is a mess. There's trash over the roads. Cops don't respond to calls. It's close to anarchy here. Is Garcetti already in Mumbai? Is anyone running this city? Karen Bass seems to be saying she's going to maintain the status quo. She knows how to work the system. No thanks. And this is after Olayemi Olurin making an appearance on the Young Turks within the past few weeks and being able to effectively bunk the propaganda that Cenk Uygur over the past couple months has started to re-embrace again. As y'all remember last year, he used to be in favor of defund the police. And now he's to the point where he's no longer. He's turned back to his Republican roots, even though that he once had. Don't forget, before Cenk Uygur became a progressive and became one half of the founders of the Justice Democrats, along with the new look, the Dax Shepard lookalike in Kyle Kalinske, specifically the one with blonde hair and Employee of the Month. He was a Republican, and now he's embraced the same things this union busting asshole used to be for in the past. And they asked the question of if he's going to vote for Rick Caruso, the guy that the Kardashians have endorsed. And this was his response. Yes, Karen Bass's main message seems to be that she is an establishment Democrat, no interest, who thinks things in LA are generally fine. They're not, and will work the system better. The problem is the system. There is nothing but incompetence and corruption here. We need change. WCSN. Let's be real. At best, they are middle-aged Turks at this point. And there's a tendency to get more and more conservative as you get older, and Cenk's not getting any younger. Hi, Ellie. Good to hear that you'll be listening in. And this is like the most illogical explanation that you can make for voting for Rick Caruso, someone who had to switch parties in order to have a chance to win this seat. Because of the fact that if you say the problem is the system, a guy like Rick Caruso will further reinforce the system. The incompetence and corruption, Rick Caruso will also further embolden that as well. If you're going to do the rationalizing votes of lesser of two evils, that the arguments become more compelling once you get more down to a local level compared to the federal level. But at least with the Karen Bass, there could be a little less of a problematic system. There could be a little less of a problem with incompetence and corruption. But the thing is, this self-defeating explanation by Cenk Uygur can be counterproductive. And the thing is, with these big cities, is that you hardly ever get to see Republicans get to be the ones who have things fall apart under their watch as well. You're seeing it happen with Eric Adams in New York. And yes, he is all intents and purposes essentially the same as a Republican. There's hardly anything that differentiates himself from a Tim Scott. But that's a conversation that your average liberal does not want to have. And the thing is, Rick Caruso is going to be another one of those cautionary moments which shows that when you try to put a Republican in charge of a big city, that they're not going to be able to do any better than your average neoliberal in charge of it. And I also know that there's some pretty good quote tweets on this. Gonna ignore the K-Hive thing, don't need to give them any good props for criticism, but point is, even he's getting attacked from the average K-Hive ship libs at this moment in time. Oh, here's a good one from Steve Poikonen. Host of Slow News Day and AM Wake Up, co-founder of Justice Democrats endorses GOP candidate for LA mayor, while the other co-founder of Justice Dems is deep-throating Joe Biden all day. There is no block of voters more gullible than progressives. That right there is the absolute truth. They've got progressives eating up all the fear-mongering propaganda, especially when it revolves around Russia. And I know that there was a pretty hilarious quote tweet in the mix from Jordan Sheraton as well that I'm trying to get to. Hopefully that one doesn't take far too long to get to. Hey there, the amazing Wolf Skeptic on Twitch. I'm doing good. Hopefully you're doing good as well. I'm not sure if you followed, but if you did, thanks so much. And oh yeah, here it is. Jordan Sheraton, the guy that is solidly on Jimmy Dore's side when it comes to trashing TYT. And yes, the answer to that question is yes. But when it comes to, but for some reason, he did a complete 180 after Jordan had Jimmy on the show last week. What do I think about communism and anarchism? Even though I lean more towards identifying as a socialist, there's elements of communism and anarchism that I support as well. And I personally don't get too caught up in labels here when it comes to like trying to bring people to my side on arguments. Some people put way too much stock into labels as their sense of identification. And that's why I usually think when it comes to stuff like this, the Democrat-Republican labeling is pretty lame. And I limit the type of binary labeling game that this gets us into. But there's more, like Jordan is doing right here. Was not on my bingo card for Cenk to come out as a Republican before Jimmy Dore. And that's exactly what happened right there. So I just find it funny how a lot of these professional managerial class and progressives, they're still caught up into this red-blue game too much. And get themselves into this game of semantics far too much, and instead of it like being limited to like basic surface level stuff. And this is what Cenk Uygur has effectively done is he's now moved further to the right of even his liberal base. As I've said, the Young Turks is essentially a neighbor to the left of MSNBC. And you can just tell by their coverage. And it's just funny how even when like genuine people who work is dedicated to debunking propaganda like Alec Kasanis and Olayemi Olorin. And Cenk is, and Anna, by the way, they're both doubling down and pushing bullshit propaganda in a city where you've got some of the worst police budget and some of the worst homelessness, where the most illogical solutions being thrown at this. And shout out to Uncle Warren, friend of the show, someone who frequently shouts me out. Then you have the awareness of wallpaper, because anyone with a brain knows Jake is a Republican. By the way, don't forget to, at midnight Eastern, he's got another secret midnight show tonight. Some good entertainment on your late Friday and Saturday nights. As you can see, mostly getting ratioed for this. But we've seen Jordan kind of like get away from the fence of being acceptable enough for many of the people who have ratioed him in this post, and compared to the progressives and the professional managerial class. But especially from the moment that he that he brought status quo over to the Breaking Points conglomerate, that's when he further stepped away. So let's now get to Ilhan Omar being confronted. This happened late Thursday night. So, and Ilhan Omar actually had a very different response compared to other progressives and squad members when they got confronted. So let's show you what happened.
You are supposed to be a progressive Democrat, anti-war. Anti-war. 80 billion to Ukraine is not anti-war.
We are helping Ukraine defend themselves.
Ukraine is killing its own citizens.
Helping people
in the Donbass.
War. We are helping little children like me that have been helped. So listen, unless you have not been paying attention to what is happening, there are millions of Ukrainians that have been displaced. There are piles of bodies that are being found in mass graves. There are little children whose lives are being lost.
By Zelensky!
Here,
by Zelensky in the Donbass.
But unless you are someone like me that has been that child, you do not get to tell me what my votes mean and how I get to vote in supporting people who desperately need support.
So that right there, she actually had a response to. She didn't melt down and cower in fear or completely ignore. But there's a lot of problems with the way she responded, so I wanted to make sure to play that in full, uninterrupted first. So now we'll break down more of this piece by piece now.
You are supposed to be a progressive Democrat, anti-war. Anti-war. 80 billion to Ukraine is not anti-war.
We are helping Ukraine defend themselves.
Ukraine is killing its own citizens.
See, what are we really helping Ukraine for? Because, let's be real, as Scott Ritter, the UN weapons contractor, said in a Jimmy Dore yesterday with guest host Aaron Mate, that for every one Russian that is being killed, 15 Ukrainians are dying in this in comparison. So they're not really helping the people of Ukraine if they're getting out slaughtered at that pace. And the next part that this person is about to get into is Ukraine killing its own citizens. You have to remember that ever since the coup government in 2014, that was a point where Ukraine went after its own citizens in the Donbass.
Helping people
In the Donbass.
War. We are helping little children like me that have been helped. So unless
you see, this is another lazy identity politics argument right there. In the same way that people fell for the argument of women in Afghanistan, and now it's children in Ukraine. When we see that what's actually happening is very counterproductive to that. Do you think it helps children in Ukraine if they lose their parents and other adults who could assist in raising them because of pushing them further and further into a war, being responsible for the ones who are calling the shots that make it to where even if Zelensky in his heart really wanted to go to the table for diplomacy, it's votes like yours, Ilhan Omar, that make you complicit in the more and more lives that Ukrainians are losing. Yes, you're funding those that oppressed and killed people like yourself. How does that make sense of? That right there is exactly what's going on in Somalia right now, WCSN. And the United States is bombing Somalia and has been for a while. It's not something that gets talked about very often. It even gets mentioned less than Libya, Syria, even Haiti, the Africa, the imperialist actions that the United States takes there hardly gets talked about. And do you even hear her be rhetorically acceptable in speaking out against what's going on in Somalia? I mean, at least Palestinian squad member Rashida Tlaib, she at least maintains being rhetorically decent when it comes to the issue of Israel and Palestine. When is the last time you've heard Ilhan Omar speak out against what is going on in Somalia. In fact, other Somalians, have turned on her for her silence on that.
Listen, unless you have not been paying attention to what is happening.
Oh, so for you to not accept the Western propaganda that you're being fed on this proxy war since late February, you're not paying it. I'm saying that you haven't been paying attention. And that what you're saying is Putin propaganda.
There are millions of Ukrainians that have been displaced. There are piles.
I won't need to hold my breath waiting for someone now, quote, lefties to be yelling out what MAGA was 2+ years ago. Wow. Yeah, that's right, man. Crazy how the tides have changed. When you talk about, well, let me click back to the previous caption. Guess what could have prevented many of those Ukrainians from being displaced? You know, this could have all been a much more temporary retaliation back when the Russians did that back in late February. Because if people were in Ukrainians' ear talking about, oh, it's time to go to the table and do diplomacy, and which honestly, if there was a reasonable response, there should have been early March. But the facts are, NATO and the United States is completely in the air because they continuously want to use Ukraine. They're going to fight this till every last Ukrainian. And the facts are that military industrial complex is profiting off of this in the boatload. So when you talk about Ukrainians being displaced, you gotta blame the NATO, the United States, and the defense contractors who have been profiting off of this war racket. That's the real reasoning right there.
There are piles of bodies that are being found in mass graves. There are little children.
Yes, and that is because of the United States continuously pushing Ukraine to fight and fight until the last Ukrainian. And that is very much on the red, dirty hands of the United States and every politician who is voting yes for that. Even if they only voted yes once. And we know no politician there right now hasn't stopped after the first or second aid package, so-called aid package, where it's really just a distribution of weapons.
Whose lives are being lost.
By Zelensky!
Here.
Yeah, by Zelensky in the Donbass.
But unless you are someone like me that has been that child, you do not get to tell me what my votes mean and how I get to vote in supporting.
Look here, anytime people start to get to the point where they pull that card on you, you do not get to tell me how to vote. That type of authoritarian rhetoric is not something that you should accept from any politician, even if it's someone you mostly agree with. And with the way that progressives like Ilhan Omar have fully embraced being neocons, you should not accept this type of authoritarian trope like she has just broken out. And it's sad because so many people have accepted this type of authoritarian rhetoric from politicians across the board. And that's what she went to when you challenged her on that vote. WCSN, if you fund Nazis, doesn't that make you a straight up Nazi, not just a plain Nazi sympathizer, Nazi lover? Well, the logic there is that some logic that liberals like to use, like the message that WCSN is pointing out right here. But the thing is, they don't keep that energy consistently. Given like the examples of continuing to vote Democrats. Hey, I'm doing good here. The virus came from a lab.
People who
So that right there was the quick little look at the signs outside the event. 80 billion for Ukraine, no way. Yes to peace, no to NATO. No taxpayer money for war. So now we get Ilhan Omar. We're going to go to her response next. So here's what she said. I'm sorry, you all aren't, quote, anti-war protesters. You are dangerous propagandists who are making a mockery of the anti-war movement. And does this sound eerily familiar to another person who dragged the anti-war movement to the right? Remember, there used to be a healthy, robust anti-war movement before Barack Obama took office. You see now progressives such as this fraud squad have now dragged whatever type of so-called anti-war movement that reformed to the right as well. And look at the projection here. The dangerous propagandists are the United States. It's insulting, she would assume, that many of us have not been paying attention to Ukraine before February. You know what's even more insulting to that as well is even if someone who hadn't been could get right up to speed on it and still be more informed than some of the people who just eat up the anti-Russia propaganda that the West has been pushing since then. Good thing to point out, Kelly. The dangerous propagandists exist in the United States. You know, the ones where people actually have rallies pretty much advocating for World War III or nuclear attacks. Scary, deranged shit. Which, by the way, Ricky Rants, by the way, has actually done a couple live streams showing what those look like around Times Square. So, another part of projection here because Ilhan Omar, whatever her views on foreign policy were, she's making a mockery of that too. And this is such a fake ass flex. I have never had the pleasure of responding to Russia ridiculous internet disinformation in person before. Thank you for the opportunity, peace. I've had numerous amounts of opportunities to go in on Western propaganda. Hey, Indy Left, what's up? Good to see you've dropped in on this late Saturday afternoon, early night, depending on wherever you are. Stream. Yes. Plenty of familiar peeps here. Hopefully, more pop in. And there was a reply. I'm amazed at the nerve that some people have to not be upset with the country literally waging war, but the country defending itself and those helping him do that. And this is, you're fully, Ilhan Omar, pushing the state talking points and just being someone who pushes them better than the last person is not the flex you think it is. We are upset with the country literally waging war, actually. Because Ukraine was the one who was the agitator in this conflict. And now, crying poor wolf, now that a country decided to stand up in Russia, decided to stand up for the Donbass, the Luhansk, places that were being attacked by its own country. I was even told by one of those people tonight, it's America that started the Russia war. Seriously, what the fuck? And that's the thing. They really have been involved. Remember? Who was it? Who was responsible for the Maidan coup? 2014. The United States. Who have been the ones who have continued to prolong this conflict and push it on? The United States. So they're very, very complicit in what's happening right now. You can be amazed, confused, dumbfounded, all you want. But that doesn't change what's really going on here. And that you're part of the problem. And that every moment that people get the opportunity to expose these frauds for what they are, it needs to continue to happen. I mean, earlier this afternoon, I saw a interview Benjamin Norton had with some guy who is pretty much being doing the whole association fear-mongering with the organization of the Larouchites. It doesn't make what they're saying that, oh, the action may be right, but these people are bad, so it's going to be counterproductive. And it's just the same. It's like smear by association, but you don't have a spine to stand up over it. Which we saw a lot during Force the Vote, where some people were too afraid to stand behind it because of people like Jimmy Dore being involved. And that's pretty much what that fence riding argument is. Let's go through a bit of the replies. Oh, this is a great article by Max Buenthal exposing Ilhan Omar for turning on the people of the country she came from in Somalia. Ilhan Omar displays the same contempt for her own constituents who protested her for meddling in Somali politics on behalf of her clan. While sending arms to Ukraine, she's backed the TPLF's war versus the government of Ethiopia. That's the real mockery of anti-war right there. Back in March, Ilhan Omar sounded a lot like the anti-war protester she demonizes today as Putin puppets. Her rhetoric was purely performative while her actions ultimately reinforced the objectives of empire. This is why we call them the fraud squad. And here's what she said back in March 8th, 2022. The consequences of flooding Ukraine with billions of dollars in American weapons, likely not limited to just military-specific equipment, but also including the small arms and ammo, are unpredictable and likely disastrous, specifically when they are given to paramilitary groups without accountability. That right there is why she has no ground to stand on. She should be one of the people standing against the imperialistic interventionist action of the United States, but she is indifferent to it. So for her to try to say that there aren't real anti-war protesters, she doesn't get to decide that. And it looks like my cam's about to go out for a minute. 80 billion would have wiped out 10,000 student debt for 8 million Americans. Well, you know, Kelly, there's actually figures that saying that we've now gone over 100 billion, 110 billion. At this point, crazy as that is, so we are helping children by supplying weapons to be buried with in Ukraine? Yes, that right there is exactly the logical fallacy that Ilhan Omar is trying to say is happening, when we know that is the furthest thing from the truth. And we got more. A good response from Wyatt Reed I'm about to show you before we move on to the Barack Obama. Ilhan Omar screamed hysterically, trying to defend her votes to fund the murderous Zelensky regime. There are piles of bodies that are being found in mass graves. She neglects to mention the butchered she is funding, just like in her home country. And we know Wyatt Reed is someone who could go further in depth about how Ilhan Omar is responsible for the further despair that is happening right now in Somalia. So very good response right there from Wyatt Reed as about to move on to the next confrontation that just happened earlier today. And this one will be with Barack Obama.
War with Russia. You overthrew Ukraine in 2014. You overthrew the legitimate Ukraine in 2014. Tell us about your plans for nuclear war. Russia's the enemy. Russia is not the enemy. Russia's the enemy. Stop getting us into nuclear war with Russia. No nuclear war. Victorian Nolan finance overthrow.
Mr. President, there's more people that are going to get hurt if we go into nuclear war. Right now, we're on the verge of nuclear war thanks to what you did in Ukraine in 2014. Why won't you tell the truth about what you did to overthrow Ukraine in 2014? Will you tell the truth? Will you tell the truth?
There is a process that we set up in our democracy.
Yeah, but we're on the verge of nuclear war. Do you care about the lives of your supporters? Will you tell the truth before the world walks into world war? The coup of 2014 is on your doorstep. You were the one that allowed for radical. Do you respect the lives of your own supporters? Will you tell the truth to us, or will you give back your peace prize?
Hey, Jimmy. Good to see you're in as well. And yes, this is kind of trippy. And when you brought up the Matrix, you reminded me of how even Psy Lawson of the Political Matrix just got his Matrix background. I saw that last week, and that also made me think of the fact that I was at Walmart today and I forgot to buy a sheet set for a green so I could have a background as well. But let's jump ahead. Bro, they talking about death of all of them and they just boo him? Make it make sense. This is very, very infuriating to see a group of people just shout down a absolutely valid question, and one that should be of serious focus, not this grandstanding for rigged elections. That what he's really there for. Exactly. Good seeing you, Leah. Yes, he needed it too. He needed it about as much as anyone. Since y'all have to remember that this Maiden coup took place under his presidency. It was he was the one who actually, if it wasn't for other thing, he could have been the one to push this along, this conflict over even further than when it happened. You can tell the shitlibs that showed up to fawn over Obama don't like the propaganda interrupted. Yes, that is right there the very frustrating essence of this, and why there needs to be far more people. I mean, I do like the strategy that they're at least making sure there's a minimum of 2 people who try this, but I think their group needs to be a bit bigger. Like when you go to big events like this, they need to be spread out and be at least 10 to 15 deep. Because what we do notice is when there's too many of us asking the same questions, we become much harder to stop. And when it comes to an event like this, it's easier to get them stopped when it's 2 people. when it's like a small when it's like those small town halls with like 30 people, then yeah, it's not going to be two people's fine for that, but you need a few more when it's an event of this size. I mean, I think it looked like a good 500 to 700 people in that crowd. Then the fact that you have so many people booing, telling these two people to shut up when there's, in fact, not enough people trying to ask these questions. Jimmy, I get so mad when I read history and people would beat up for being anti war. I had hoped we changed. And the sad part is, it's getting worse at this time. I mean, at least with if this was taking place in like Europe, I'm pretty sure that plenty of European countries there'd at least be more people who like be supportive of this. But this is why I say the United States is absolutely among the last of the NATO countries where a big uprising would happen. Kelly agreed. There needs to be more people, frankly. I would worry about Obama's Secret Service taking you out back and beating the hell out of you. Yes, and I hope this strategy gets taken into future consideration because even though it'd be good to spread the voices out, you also need like a couple of the main voices to be surrounded by more of their people as well and like chain up to block out other people. That would be another part of the strategy to make this more effective going forward. But Barack Obama, he wants to talk about civility. He has the audacity to talk about that when he added 7 more wars in his 2 terms. And he wants to you pull a civility card out on you. Oh, you don't do you get to interrupt people like that in the workplace? Yes, your workplace, it's perfectly valid for people to interrupt you when there's important things, like the pressing issue of potential nuclear danger. I haven't seen this part. See, let's this is how it looked on CNN earlier this afternoon.
Crazy allegations about them. That creates a dangerous climate. And if elected officials don't do more to explicitly reject that kind of rhetoric, if they tacitly support it or encourage their supporters to stand outside voting places armed with guns and dressed in tactical gear, more people can get hurt. And we're going to be violating the basic spirit of this country. Yes. So, sir, wait, come on. But this is what I mean. This is what I mean. I mean, we're having a conversation. Sir, I'm not. Sir, come on, sir. This is what I'm saying. Look, we got there is a process that we set up in our democracy. Right now, I'm talking. You'll have a chance to talk sometime.
Oh yeah, the process of democracy, by the way, which you know, where we get to support fascist countries like the Ukraine, and we pretend like we're a democracy while the United States is also a very fascist country. And that even when you attack a country which is similar to that, which isn't exactly socialist either, that's still, they're considered more fascist. Make it make sense.
It's not a good way to do business. You wouldn't do that at a workplace. If you wouldn't just interrupt people in the middle of a conversation. It's not how we do things. And this is part of the point that I want to make. Just basic civility and courtesy works. And that's
Weird, except for the fact that I haven't heard that being tried much to, end this conflict, because we know that people like Barack Obama, who ordered drone strikes, which killed people in weddings, at schools, and parks, he surely knows a thing about civility, doesn't he?
what we want to try to encourage. So that's okay. No. Wait. Quiet down. Look, listen. Hey, hold up. Hold on a minute. Listen, everybody. Hey, y'all up there, pay attention.
And this is the sad part here of what happens when people legitimately believe that the biggest scandal of the Obama presidency was the fact that he wore a tan suit once. I will not have conversation. You just listen to me and STFU people. That's exactly what was happening in an open space where they don't want you to be able to challenge it. If they answer questions, they only want it to be pre-approved ones, where they are prepared and know how to answer them. Oh hell, stop his speech to allow the chicken to paint the hiccup, But someone makes a valid statement and he can't be interrupted. Wow. That point right there, exactly. And the Dems thought Obama was their secret weapon. People are on to what's happening. Yes, that right there is very true. If Obama was this superhero that was the way to win elections and midterms, then he wouldn't be out here speaking. Kelly, Obama's drone strikes equal 95% civilian casualty rate. But yeah, let's be civil. See, he does not have any room to talk civility when he is complicit to all the wars that were added under his time when he was president. Just like he is nowhere near an authority to be able to talk about democracy and how he tells you anytime something bad happens, the only way to fight it is with your vote. And with the way Barack Obama talks about voting, it's like telling someone to bring a paper to a gunfight. And we know how well using even just a knife would work. They want to be the ones to be the authority on violence and tell people to be civil in the process. And we notice that people are starting to get very, very done with powerful people trying to tone police them, then melting down when they try to call out their war crimes. But before we continue further, if you haven't yet, please like the stream and share it to familiar, unfamiliar places. Subscribe as we continue on with the Rochford Files with your host, Andrew Rochford, as we are now to the point to talk about some of the discourse with this Paul Pelosi incident that happened yesterday. See if there's any update to this article before I start it. I'm not sure if this is the best article, but I think it'll work for some of the basic details. Paul Pelosi, the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, was attacked with a hammer at the couple's home in San Francisco by a male assailant early Friday morning, law enforcement sources told CNN. The assailant who attacked him was searching for the Speaker of the House, according to a source briefed on the attack. So let's start off with the hammer part. So, Nick Cruz of Revolutionary Blackout Network brought up a good point when the details of this came out. Seriously, if you're hitting an 82-year-old man with a hammer, how is he going to survive that? First off, even if it's a woman of below average strength and you give her a hammer and they get a decent shot on an 85-year-old man, how is he supposed to survive that? In fact, I would be concerned if Paul Pelosi could survive a foam or plastic hammer, let alone an actual metal hammer. Especially with the so-called head trauma that he had. And Nick is a trained fighter, so I think he is pretty understanding of what actual head trauma would do. The intruder confronted the Speaker's husband in their San Francisco home, shouting, "Where is Nancy? Where is Nancy?" According to the source, the man who assaulted Paul Pelosi tried to tie him up until Nancy got home. According to two sources familiar with the situation, when police arrived, the assailant was saying he was waiting for Nancy. This was not a random act, this was intentional, San Francisco Police Chief William Scott said during a news conference of the investigation, adding, "It's wrong. Our elected officials are here for the business of their cities, their countries, their states, and then this nation. Their families didn't sign up to be harmed, and it's wrong." Our families, by the way, did not sign up to be under the political violence of politicians like Nancy Pelosi, where their policies enact violence on the people on a daily basis. Did we sign up for this inflation? Did we sign up to be in this police state, which could, in theory, kill someone whenever they feel like it and get diplomatic immunity in just about most of those cases? Did we sign up for a to be in a housing market which forces just about everyone to rent homes. And even if you're lucky enough, in some cases you gotta rent with like 3-4 people, or that's just what it takes to be able to team up and buy a home together. Did we sign up for that? Did we sign up for people to not have their basic bodily autonomy, including for vaccines and women's choice to abortion? No. Did we sign up to be part of a American private healthcare system which allows us to be at the discretion of the private middleman insurance, which could bankrupt us the first moment that we have a major health crisis in our lives? Those are examples of the legalized violence that people get to be secure in from the ruling class. And it does seem odd that a 42-year-old man can't tie up an 82-year-old man. Does Paul have superhuman strength? And Kelly, what is that head made of? Titanium? It's going to need some great representation and bail. That right there is true. I especially love learning that the American taxpayer is paying for their security system. And also, don't forget, Kelly, we tried to point out how we as the people should reallocate funds from their security system and, use it on social programs instead. But the propaganda machine has told us that you have to continuously adding more and more and more to that. Yes, we'll get into more of that. WCSN, that reported story, has a lot of holes in it. It's no security detail, but the cops got there in like 2 minutes, while others 1 mile away are still waiting for 911 to show up 2 days later. That right there shows what the purpose of the police state is. It works for the powerful people and their property first. As Nancy's military friends would just say, he was going after her. Her husband was just a casualty. That right there could be very right. Let's continue on a bit further. Pelosi, 82, was taken to a hospital and underwent a successful surgery to repair a skull fracture, serious injuries to the right arm and hands. Drew Hamill, spokesperson for Nancy Pelosi, said in a statement early Friday evening. The statement said, "Doctors expect he will make a full recovery." Let's go to the police details real quick. Authorities identified 42-year-old David DePape as the suspect in the attack. Officials expect to bring forward multiple felony charges in connection with the incident next week. San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins tweeted Friday evening. Scott detailed Friday evening what responding law enforcement officers witnessed when they arrived at the scene. When officers arrived at the Pelosi residence, Scott said the front door was opened by someone inside, and the officers from outside the door observed Pelosi and DePape each had a hand on a single hammer. While still outside the home, officers saw DePape pull the hammer away from Pelosi and attack Pelosi, the police chief said. Scott went on to say Pelosi was struck by DePape at least once. At an earlier news conference, the suspects had pulled a hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him. Officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him, took him into custody, requested emergency backup, and rendered medical aid, he continued. Paul Pelosi was able to call 911 at the start of the attack, according to law enforcement. the source of the matter. He managed to keep the line open, and the dispatcher could hear a conversation in the background according to a law enforcement source. So I think that's most of the basic details. I think there was. See what Jimmy says. Of course, well, for sure, signs. He has Pelosi money. It's the only way he could survive a hammer attack. I've never seen anyone survive that, and I've seen a lot of true crime. Must be nice to have, quote, access to top-notch healthcare. And that also begs the question. If he could what if that was a gimmicked hammer? Like, we know in wrestling that a lot of the weapons that wrestlers used are gimmicked. That way they could break easier, or they're not quite as hard as the actual real thing, like tables in wrestling are actually softer than the regular table, and they're also easy to break, but they're also firm enough to where most of them don't break just from the mere weight of a wrestler being placed on a table either. So that could have been a gimmick hammer. It could have been a something that was a bit softer than metal. Don't forget the sugar glass. They made the window look like the entry was broken with said hammer. So let's go through some of the top stuff on Twitter on this. So let's refresh and see if the top stuff changes a bit. See, Glenn Greenwald points out a good thing. There are key details about the Paul Pelosi attack that remain vague or confusing, including who let the police in, how he was able to call 911 in the middle of it, and what the attacker's motives were. The attempt to fill in these gaps with narrative benefits isn't journalism. So, you imagine that someone isn't like the Pelosi's, doesn't have like top-notch security to where someone could just get in like that? You know the Pelosi's are making so much money when they're driving like the Kardashians. Drunk driving car accidents, getting robbed. Tell me about it. But apparently there was a detail there that this attacker actually let Paul Pelosi go to the bathroom. I mean, isn't that kind of weird? Compton J of Revolutionary Blackout Network, the lady who made millions from insider trading and who refused to bring Medicare for all to the floor gets zero sympathy from me. Let me say this with the utmost respect. I don't give a fuck what happens to corrupt people like Nancy and Paul Pelosi. Exactly. They want us to feel bad about what happened to them when they've enriched themselves off of the violence and despair of what they've put people all over the country through. Living in poverty, homelessness, so much more. And don't forget, Nancy Pelosi wanted to threaten Donald Trump during his presidency. Like, you remember during the January 6th, there was some camera where caught Nancy Pelosi saying, "Oh, I want to punch Donald Trump." You think that she should get away with crying wolf when it comes back to her family. Anyone notice how much more secure windows they have compared to the single panel Capitol building in D.C. that the protesters broke through on January 6th? Another thing, this could absolutely be part of the inside job that they use moments like these of opportunism to clamp down on the increasing state power through the police and surveillance state. The thing that would keep the thumb further under the people who want something different, a society that works better for them. Don't forget, the other time Paul Pelosi got hammered was the drunk driving. And this is the whole discourse thing that gets a bit annoying here. And this John Cooper is an example of it. The guy who attacked Paul Pelosi with a hammer made racist post online, defended Trump, questioned the results of the 2020 election, and pushed other conspiracy theories. MAGA isn't a political organization, it's a domestic terrorist organization. End of story. And you just got liberals and conservatives alike calling each other fascist, questioning the results of elections when they don't go their way. When the truth is, the election results are very sus, regardless of who wins. And this duopoly is both working together, hand in hand, to make sure to drag us further and further, emboldening the brand of U.S. fascism, which is essentially the difference between Pepsi and Coke. Hint, there isn't much. So that's the part of the discourse that is annoying here because, a good photo illustrating the outrage that liberals have towards this Paul Pelosi attack. Nuclear war. I'm good. And yes, there are a lot of holes that this Paul Pelosi story has right now. And that's why I'm not too into... In general, I'm not into this whole condolences thing when they actually were the ones complicit for, the same thing that you enriched yourselves off of, Pelosi's. Well, it's the same thing that finally looped around to bite you in the ass because of having this capitalist system. This is the consequence of it. It can even be a negative effect to rich people. Even when the system is supposed to be, the state is advantageous to you, having the better security, the better police response time, it all still works against you. Because people like this get created by capitalism. They're not this, outlier that gets emboldened by on their own or through some fringe outlets. It's very much created through the corporate media plays their part in it. The independent media outlets who still have very much of the same corporate aesthetics play their part in it. especially more on the right. But the point is, they try to blame, because these things are going to continue to come up. The more and more they try to double further and further down on this fascist capitalist society. And it's simple. If you meet people's basic needs, think about how much those people would shrink in comparison, because it all very much ties into like the mass shooting aspect of it too. A lot of mass shooters, the things that cause them are done by their basic needs not being met. And this duopoly pushes only policy that doesn't meet the basic needs of only a very, very, very tiny percentage of people. So this is why instances like this will continue to happen. You can do the lazy ideological blame game, but it's really a capitalist system, which both sides, they can point the finger at each other on, but that's really what has caused the thing to happen. And my message is to Nancy Pelosi, even though I know she's long gone from the near 30 years ago when she once considered bringing Medicare for all to the House floor. But the thing is, a more socialist society would definitely bring a lot of those outliers who conspire to attack people, whether it's by gun or hammer, like in the way that happened. So next, we're going to get into finally going to get into an aspect of this Kanye West fallout after he's losing a lot of his current things due to anti-Semitic comments he made due to and one of the consequences is the Donda Academy being shut down. But before that, let's see this next comment from Kelly. This is just a false flag to gin up sympathy for Nancy, to distract from the terrible job she and Congress are doing for Americans. She is universally disliked, and that we are making it rain for Zelensky. And that right there is exactly what we've been trying to point out here. We try to point out that the people would, the truth sympathetic stance would be to do all that you can to end war, not continue it. And of course, it's a great example of American propaganda by design. Calling for sympathy to end a war. Why, you crazed lunatic bastards. But when it's sympathy for, but when you don't want to give that sympathy to a politician, where you could argue that the policies that they've emboldened are the ones that caused it to happen, they call you the disrespectful asshole. But let's get into this story of Donda Academy, because this, in a way, presents like a class issue with education. The Donda Academy is shutting down for the school year after recent anti-Semitic comments made by the Academy's founder, the artist formerly known as Kanye West. According to an email from Principal Jason Angel, a copy of which obtained by ESPN, the decision to close was made by the Grammy Award-winning artist, who has legally changed his name to Ye. Our leadership team will be working diligently to assist all families during this transition, ensuring that every scholar has what they need to succeed in the next community in a prompt and gracious manner. Angel War. We intend to begin afresh in September of 2023. However, another email obtained by TMZ and signed parents of Donda called for students to return to the academy Thursday, leaving the status of the school in some doubt. Amid the closing announcement, Donda Academy's boys basketball program, who has 3 top 50 recruits in the class of 2023, has seen invitations to 4 prominent high school basketball showcases rescinded. The Hoop Hall Classic, John Wall Holiday Invitational, and Kentucky Play-by-Play Classic confirmed in statements that Donda Academy would no longer participate in their events, with Scholastic Play-by-Play Classic's founder, Jeremy Treatman, expressing remorse for the effects on the Academy's players. So I think that sums up the main points of what's happened here with the whole Donda Academy. So Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics, he was one of the players, part of the Donda agency. But recently, this Kanye West web meltdown is the thing that led him to cut ties with the Donda agency. And yes, there are some good things to what Jaylen Brown says, but then there's other things where I know that I question his perspective. So we'll go here to this first tweet. A lot of great teachers, parents, and students are affected by this. It is easy to speak from the outside looking in. I spent time at Donda Academy, and it is a lot better than some public schools in America with better curriculum. High school students were fully accredited. But that's the thing that is the problem right here. It was an unaccredited school. What parent would send their child to an academy founded by ex-Mr. Kardashian? Yes, that's a good layer to this argument to get into, Kelly, is the fact that there's Kanye West has made several anti-black statements recently, such as slavery was a choice. He said that he kind of then also anti-George Floyd statements too. And so often the black parts of the black community give him a pass for that. And Jaylen Brown, up until those anti-Semitic statements came out, didn't disassociate himself from the agency until then. Yes, Jaylen did. His tweets did have quite a few punctuation issues. But the thing is with this school, it's also a private school where students have to pay $15,000 a year. So that also begs me to question, why hasn't Jaylen Brown advocated for students that are in public schools, having a better education there? Why is it suddenly Jaylen Brown doing it when it comes to students with well-off families that paid their way in by and large? I wouldn't say every single student had to pay to get into that, because I'm sure that a few of these students, especially ones who got recruited to play sports there, because I'm sure that is And I know that's how it goes with private schools. They'll give you that exception if you're a really special athlete in some sport. I mean, I live a mile and a half away, close by, I should say, to a school, a private school here, where students, where it's like a private Catholic school, and gets a lot of the best students, best athletes from like middle school recruited there to play sports. So I know what private schools are about when it comes to recruiting for their athletics. So I imagine a few of those top athletes probably aren't well off enough to be in a position to just go switch on to another nice ass school. And they were probably literally displaced from a year of their basketball season. And they're probably going to just have to replace it with more AAU fulfillments. Education, resources, and opportunities is key. Donda Academy supplied that for these student athletes in hopes to get exposure and potentially change their families' lives generationally. That opportunity was taken away from them today to prove a point. Why make them a part of this? Yes, even though many of these people are more well off, especially when you can afford private K through 12. But the point is, just like in the way that people like the international sports demonized the country of Russia and their sports to make a point ever since the proxy war started, I think the same thing holds true here. Anti-Semitism should be handled with sensitivity and respect. Inequalities / lack of opportunity in our education system should be handled with sensitivity and respect. A school with resources, opportunity academically and athletically have been taken away abruptly without notice. And that part right there is true of his statement. And how people have been inconsequentially affected by association of this. Then he asked the question, if the school was not accredited, how did it open in the first place? And why close it now? Did you forget the movie Accepted, Jaylen? You could essentially make up your own school and make up its own curriculum. You know, there's actually colleges that aren't accredited either. More of them are like specialized trade schools, but it's not an uncommon phenomenon for unaccredited schools. Yeah, that right there is a point I was getting on like a couple minutes ago, Kelly. Somehow we can't find the money for kids at public schools to have. And this is the point of why I think Jaylen Brown has a bit of a disconnect to people in public schools. He grew up a very intelligent person. So he was one of the smartest people in college too. In fact, when he came out in the NBA draft in 2015, there were even criticisms of him being too smart because he was someone who questions things, especially in the coaching, especially questioning his coaches. Yes, nice correction on that one, Kelly. But while I think I'm gonna show that example of, I'm gonna look that up real quick while I continue on with this segment to show you. Oh yes, I found it right now. I think this is the type of levity that this segment needs. Okay, fine. Okay, now you're ready to share it. Here it is. I think this will give the people a proper explanation needed to explain the perspective of Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Smart was once considered too smart for the league by an NBA executive. During the, let's see, what's the actual part? My browser is a bit slow. Here's the actual quote. Never forget the pre-draft flags on Jaylen Brown were he enjoyed chess, took grade-level classes at Cal, and was too smart for his own good. An unnamed NBA assistant general manager also said Brown's high level of intelligence and inquisitive nature could intimidate some general managers and coaches, Spears explains. Yeah, Brown is a good kid who doesn't fit the mold of a so-called basketball player. He's an extremely intelligent kid. He took a grad school class at Cal his freshman year. He is a person who's inquisitive about everything. Because he is so smart, it might be intimidating to some teams. He wants to know while you're doing something instead of doing it. I don't think it's bad, but it's a form of questioning authority. It's not malicious. He just wants to know what is going on. Old school coaches don't want guys that question stuff. So that right there is the example of the necessary perspective that's needed to decipher this Jaylen Brown story. United States, no lunches for kids. Yes, funding for Nazi lunches. Too soon. Yeah, we know they're the ones who are getting all the full benefits of this money. Is he trying to emulate Meta World Peace? I wouldn't say so. I don't think. I never really pictured. Meta's never really been a big speak on social issues type of guy, but I think I'm going to draw a parallel here. Do y'all remember the show Smart Guy? And I do believe that there was one episode in the point of that series where TJ gets exposed for having a disconnect. I mean, there were instances in that show where TJ Henderson got exposed for having a disconnect to the kids his age, and because he was someone who was so smart, he jumped up 6 grades ahead. And I think with as smart as Jaylen Brown is, I think there's that same type of parallel here, where the first time you hear him speak up for education is for private school kids. So that's very much in his realm of relation. And the facts are, I'd like to see Jaylen do it for the public school kids. Because that, in the way, is like the equivalent of TJ Henderson's 4th graders, is being able to speak up for them. But I could see how someone like Jaylen may not relate well to people of average intelligence. So that right there is why he hasn't spoke up on other class issues, because education does present itself like that. And the fact that it's connected to basketball doesn't help the case either. Would he have spoken up for a school that had a private school with unaccredited as well, where the leader of it has it canceled uh, to racism? Would he have spoken up for that top chess program, since we know he likes chess? But that's the thing that someone like Jaylen Brown could improve on. A lot of these NBA players, they can speak well on social issues, but when it comes time to make to connect it with class, the social class intersectionality, many of them come very short. Damn, tickle in my throat. Thanks so much, Kelly. I didn't get to watch last night. I was spending some good time, quality time, with a someone that you've seen pop up in the chat before. But I was glad the Nuggets won last night, and I want to see them continue to make the Lakers winless tomorrow night as well. But I did enjoy DeAndre Jordan hitting a three against the Jazz, like the way that Mason Plumlee hit a random ass three against them too. That's deep, WCSN. Is Donda a Simpsons reference? Springfield High School Principal Donda Wingler? It's crazy how many of these things can be connected to The Simpsons. Then it just goes out one ear and in one ear, out the other, and you don't even think about it. But now we're going to go to another sports-related story. And this one's involving Josh Primo. He was the second-year player from the San Antonio Spurs. And yes, and something interesting happened yesterday. After about a week of getting his option picked up on a rookie year contract, the San Antonio Spurs released him before their game last night against the Chicago Bulls. But now, then Josh released a statement needing to work time through past traumas. Well, now we are getting to the source of it. The San Antonio Spurs release of Josh Primo, the number 12 pick in the 2021 NBA draft, stemmed from multiple alleged instances of him exposing himself to women, sources told ESPN. The decision to release Primo on Friday night was sudden and shocking. It spoke to the severity of the issues surrounding the promising 19-year-old player. The team had recently picked up the $4.3 million 2023-24 option on Primo's contract, signifying a level of confidence in his future with the franchise. Many NBA teams remain intrigued with Primo's talent and potential, but are searching for a more complete understanding of the situation as they weigh the possibility of placing a claim to acquire Primo before he clears waivers and becomes a free agent Monday afternoon, sources say. In a statement to ESPN on Friday night, Primo acknowledged a need to continue mental health treatment more fully. I've been seeking to help to deal with previous trauma I suffered and will now take this time to focus on my mental health treatment more fully, I hope to discuss these issues in the future so I can help others who have suffered in a previous way. I appreciate privacy at this time. I'm going to say that this is not a good look for you, Josh Primo. And what I'm thinking he is now going through is the shame of all the bombshells being dropped down on him following this thing that came out. Kelly, what is it with guys wanting to expose themselves to women? What is the end game here? Exactly. There's so many guys out there who do not get. It's amazing how so many guys think that women like dick pics when it's something that could be one of the furthest things that they would want. Women want guys who could talk to them like normal people for a while before they get to like more hot, racy, sexy stuff in conversation. And that's the problem. That's a concept that so many guys fail to grasp the concept of. You know, in actuality, if you can talk to women normally and show that you care about more than sex with them, they still may not want that dick pic, but the difference is they'd rather have that dick inside of them if you can have that type of discipline in building relationships. Because when you just go to this quick ass thing, it's just gonna more than likely get you ridiculed and embarrassed. And I think that him weaponizing the language of mental health, that's shameful. A guy that exposes himself not wants privacy at all, that's the sad part right there. Is the fact that this is an example of this should be a cautionary tale of what happens when you think you know all the right moves, when you're breaking out all the wrong ones, when you try to engage with women online, or even if it's someone that you met in person, but then you think, oh, we saw each other in person. It's okay to break out the dick pics. Not any better, then. That's not going to work out any better for you. But I know that there's a. And Shams just in the midst of the show dropped another bombshell on this story. Sources: a former Spurs female employee has alleged that guard Josh Primo has exposed himself to her, and she has hired attorney Tony Busby. Busby represented the women in the sexual misconduct lawsuits against NFL quarterback Deshaun Watson. You have to wonder how often, um, these guys don't pay attention to their other fellow athletes fucking up. This Deshaun Watson shit's been all over for the past year and a half or so. And you've got what type of blinders do dudes like Josh Primo have on to not see what's happened? Like, not only that, the Robert Kraft massage parlor incident. Kellyanne, as a woman, I can say confidence and sense of humor are much better than dick pics. Yes, that right there is true. And I can say from experience that it's better to just let women open up boundaries like that and give the consent rather than trying to do things without permission or consent. Permission and consent is a very big thing to learn. And you could push the envelope much better with consent than you could without it. But overall, just be yourself. Try to show that you can be a normal person and not be sex deranged. Then you'll get further places in life. And the fact that there's people like Josh Primo who think that their status has afforded them the privilege of skipping those steps. And the facts are, that's just not going to work like it used to. And my idea of a dick pic site is still money. These pea-stretching guys from Australia, different colors and shaping, and photoshopping. Interesting, but I'm sure that there's going to be more and more details that come out on the whole Josh Primo story. And I would hope that more athletes or celebrities and other high status people pay attention to this. Because your privilege should not give you should not be a pass from consequences like this. There is ethics involved here that you should be following in your interpersonal interactions with others. And they should apply whether you're Deshaun Watson, Josh Primo, Robert Kraft, or you're just the average dude online who, for some reason, hasn't gotten it through the numbskull of theirs that sending out dick pics doesn't work. Science has already exists. It's called chat roulette. Some very weird times could be had checking out chat roulette, by the way, but I'm surprised he forgot about that, by the way. But it's interesting, the two latest mini scandals in the NBA this year have been related to unethical sexual behavior. I think the Ime Udoka one is definitely more gray areas to it. But this one is definitely more sending dick pics to work for Brett Favre. Oh, I forgot about him. You know, that reminds me of other dudes who've been caught sending dick pics as well. Greg Oden, Seth Rollins. Those are a couple of the other big names that come to mind as those who've been exposed for sending them. And that reminds me, Media Takeout was a great site to. Yes, him too, WCSN. Media Takeout was a great site for all that celebrity gossip, and they were one of the ones that would have that would show all the moments of celebrities being put on blast for sending their dick pics. Speaking of Brett Favre, by the way, Oh, when's that guy going to see any actual accountability for what he played a role in Mississippi, by the way? But the moral of the story is, in the world of dating, don't send dick pics. Unless women ask for them. Because even some of the women who don't even like dick pics at all, even if they have sex with you. So, rule number one, guys, no dick pics. If you start there, you could start to have more success in your dating life. Robert, quote, happy endings craft hill. But that guy did not get anywhere near the punishment for doing some of the same things that Deshaun Watson did. But I think the difference is because he didn't go to professional massage places. He didn't use professionals. So that's why he's not in as much trouble as Deshaun Watson. Let's see. Go to the YouTubes real quick and show off the upcoming show to go to. See, is there. Yes. Even though neither you or Kelly or WCSN on Twitter. Make a trend, Jimmy. Make a trend, Uncle Warren. Yeah, that's the thing. Sending pictures of the dishes getting done requires a second person. And that's a thing that some of these dick penny sending guys don't want, that extra hand of assistance. I knew what you were saying, Jimmy, but some upcoming streams to go to. The guys at the Political Matrix. You should go there. As of right now, they got this stream scheduled at 10 p.m. Eastern, so that's plenty of time between the end of this show to hop on over there. And some of the stuff that Marcus Cage and Cy Lawson will be talking about tonight. They're going to be talking about Elon Musk take over Twitter. They'll do some of their talk on the Pelosi's, more Putin, Ye, and Kyrie Irving. I didn't want to touch that Kyrie stuff yet. That shit's all pretty messy. Plus, I know that Cy and Marcus are better equipped to engage with that. But that's one stream to go to later. Then y'all know. After that, go to the following the Political Matrix. Go to Uncle Warren's Secret Midnight Show at midnight Eastern, 10 p.m. for me in Denver, 9 p.m. for Kelly, WCSN, and Jimmy. So that's a couple later streams to watch later. Oh yeah, don't forget, if you haven't yet, I wanted to... Oh, there we go. Don't forget Jimmy Sunderland, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Go to Kerberos Media on YouTube for her show called What? And it's perfect because it's right after AM Wake Up in the morning. Hey, Jimmy McGill. About to end things shortly on the Twitch side of things. More of the people are more active on my YouTube channel. If you go to my YouTube page, and there'll be more people chatting in there. Thanks. Oh, I'm trying to do better, Kelly, because I wasn't quite as good as I needed to be. Uncle Warren actually pushed me to get better on that, because I noticed Warren would talk more about that. Has tried to do his part to help a lot. Jimmy's starting to has been doing it for me too. Less bones. Yes, vacation was somewhat good, except this cold dragging on for the past week plus. I kind of ruined the back half of it. But yeah, getting some good quality time in. Yes, you're welcome, Jimmy. And yes, I'll eventually have to come out of working to say hi during one of your streams. But with that being said, don't forget to click the link tree in the description below. And follow me on other platforms such as Rumble. Also, don't forget to like the stream as well if you haven't done so yet. And help boost me in the algorithm. Share to new and unfamiliar places too. And as for next time, go to next stream will probably be possibly Monday or Wednesday. And probably Wednesday, to be honest. Thanks so much, Kelly. Yes. I haven't gotten a chance to talk much about the Kanye issue outside of the Donda Academy, but there will be plenty of other independent media sources to get more of that coverage. But with that being said, take this shit off the internet and bump it outside. This is Andrew Rochford saying goodbye and good night. See y'all there as well.